Home Assistant 2024.8 is out, and there's some new improvements to the UI and some changes on the back end, so let's get right to it. Okay, so we're going to go right into badges. What has been added now in this version of Home Assistant is the ability to have badges at the top of your dashboard. Now, this works in both masonry and the sectionals or experimental section dashboards. This is the experimental sections dashboard that I'm using, which is now my daily driver. And if you've not seen the videos I've made on these, check those out. They're in my channel. But you just click on Edit the Dashboard. You can already see I've created a number of these dashboards. All of these are based on motion detection. And it's very handy to, when you look at the dashboard, to only have the things that are available. And also on my tablet that sits over here on my desk, you can tell there's motion because all of this stuff will push down just a little bit because these are all hidden unless something actually happens. So you'll see this change and go up and down depending on whether these badges become visible or not. To add a badge, it's simple. You go in here and you click this little plus, which will show up on your dashboard if you've upgraded. And then you can choose by badge or by entity. If you were to choose an entity over here, let's look at this humidity right here. If you click on it by entity and click on continue down here, it's going to ask you or create a suggestion for you, which you can then just add to dashboard. So now I have a humidity badge up here. And just like you can with most of the other tile cards and things, you can set the visibility. So I can actually add a condition for a numeric state. And if that entity is above or below a certain state, then it becomes visible on the dashboard. You can also change appearance, humidity, let's say outside. I'm just guessing at this right now. Actually, studio. That's studio humidity. By default, it chooses the icon and state. So you can see the icon and state, but you don't know which thing it is. So I found that I need to choose icon, name, and state, and then you see studio. If I had a choice in the matter, I would figure out how to make the word for the name a little bit bigger, but because it's a badge, it has to be tiny to make it look right or to make it fit. So all of these little things are super tiny, but I can see enough of it to tell which one it is, even with my old eye vision. So those are badges, and you can customize and add these to your heart's content. And right now, the only badge is this one right here that's visible. The next thing is the density of items placed on the dashboard. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you might be able to tell a slight difference. It's very subtle, but essentially they've cleaned this up and kind of squeezed things together, removed some of the dead space in between icons and some of the text and stuff. I can definitely tell a difference on my dashboard that this is now a compressed version of the icons and the cards and things. It just makes things fit in a tighter space. And this works well for tablets and dashboards. And for specifics on what they say has been done, the height of each row has been reduced, allowing more information to be displayed on the screen. They also reduced the gap between the tile card contents and its features, resulting in cleaner and more uniform appearance. You can kind of see that here, where you have a lot of white space or dead space around this, and that's been removed to make this use less space for the card overall with the same contents. And you can also see that they've kind of pulled this section closer to this section a little bit, slightly. And then also all of this white space in here has been removed to bring the feature, which is this bar, closer to the other elements in the card. Same thing here. There's a lot of space here, and they've really pulled that closer. And on my dashboard, you can see that some of these cards, like the fan card here, there's not hardly any space at all between the bottom of the card and the elements on the card. Same way with this one right here. To me, it still needs to be a little work on centering it so it looks nicer. Having it right at the bottom doesn't look as good as having it centered on the card like this, but it does clean up a lot of space, and it leaves space for other stuff on the dashboard. So if you're a fan of nice, clean looks, this is going to be for you. As far as the badges go, let me point out something. They're designed to match the design of the mushroom chip cards, and they're meant to sit at the top, which obviously you see up here. They're sitting at the very top. they provide a summary of the most important information you need to know at a glance. That's what makes this useful for the motion detection. I only need to see motion when it's detected, and otherwise everything just kind of goes away. They match the functionality of the previous design, but now more feature rich, obviously, fully configurable from the UI. One of the biggest points here is if you have existing old style badges, they will be automatically converted to the new badges. Now, I saw a lot of discussion on the forums during the beta that what it does with the text is it was pushing it off to the side, and you used to be able to have the text over here. Now that that's gone, I need to show you. The text used to be over to the side, and that kind of messed things up a little bit. I see now that they put the text on top instead of over to the side, and that makes it a little bit cleaner. So feedback from the beta helped this final product output. All right, so that's the two things related to the dashboard. Now we want to talk about things like filtering. So let's go to entities, and let's talk about the entity filters. Now you have two new sections or two new columns called created and modified. These are hidden by default. So this is what you would typically see. If you want to add filtering or sorting by columns, or viewing these columns, you come over here and you can look at created and modified, and then you can sort by those created and modified. So if I sort by created, you'll see the latest created entities. Now keep in mind also that the entities that show the creation date are only after the update. Anything before you update to 2024.8 will not show as a created. So you won't be able to go back and see 3 years ago when an entity was created. You only see stuff going forward. Just keep that in mind. I'm not sure 100% about modified if that's the same case, but you can see when an entity was modified, and it might be the same. It looks like it follows that same process. So two new columns here to help you filter and sort things and make them easier to find in Home Assistant. All right, so one of the next things I want to talk about is the change from actions or from service calls to actions. And let me just read it here the way they show it. The release marks an important milestone in evolution. We're saying goodbye to service calls and hello to actions. If you are a longtime user, this is not something to be, don't go crazy and get upset about it or be worried about it. It doesn't break anything, and everything is backwards compatible. Back in 2024.1, they unified the actions in Home Assistant automation and script editor. So you would see it say add action. So if I go to automations, and I create an automation, just a blank one here. If I want to do something, that's adding an action here, right? So this has been here since 2024.1, the idea of adding an action, and then you would do something such as light turn on, and that action would be performed. In this release, it's the goal is to make automation editor easier for new users to understand by removing service call layer and terminology. So this represents the UI that has been in use since January, which is what I just showed you. The underlying terminology in our documentation and every other place still use service call. So the term services in Home Assistant was ambiguous. It's used for both services you can call, things you can do in Home Assistant, and things you might integrate with like the weather or music. So to make things clearer, they changed the terminology around service calls from services to actions everywhere. So if you go over here and you go to developer tools, and we're going to leave this. Now over here, if you want to do something, the action dev tool allows you to perform any action available in Home Assistant. So the terminology has changed there. Unlike the previous services, which were called, now we are doing, or they're doing performance or performed. Now, if you write automations in YAML, you'll notice that service key in your actions is now called action. So this is automatically updated for you. If you UI manage your automations, they're going to be automatically converted the next time they're edited and saved. So if you write automation in YAML, you can use either action or service, but the recommendation is to use action going forward. So it's just a change to make it clearer that these are actions that are being performed rather than service calls or service integrations or something like that. If you call an action, so if I go back to my automation, and by the way, this perform action is what we're talking about here to make it more unified in terminology. But if I go back to my automations and I create an automation by clicking the button here, and then I do an action. If I want to say call service here, it will actually say that this perform action is now something that used to be called call service. So you could still actually use this terminology if you're old school and you remember, hey, I want to call a service, but it actually will be perform action. So you can call perform action the same way you could say service call. So if you type either one of these, it's going to do the same thing. All right, so that takes care of the new service call versus perform an action kind of thing and all the changes in terminology. Now, there's a quick, I'll go over this quickly, but I haven't delved into this enough to really be an expert on it. Am I an expert on anything, really? Control Home Assistant using AI with Ollama. So they introduced the ability to use OpenAI and Google AI to control your home using the large language models. So they want to use local hosted LLM. The thing about it is that's hard to do without a lot of hardware to throw against it. There is a local LLM available that was created to, or achieved thanks to Shulyika. I'm saying that wrong, I'm sure. The performance of the local models was also fine-tuned by Alan Porter, who does a lot of work in Home Assistant. So you can kind of see that the prompt tuning and fixes in this release have gotten local LLMs to about an 84%. You have to limit the number of entities that you include in there or it won't work as well. They're going to continue to work on this, but the point is you can do local LLMs now if you want to. And I said 15, but it's really 25. They recommend using the Llama 3.18b model as of 2024.8 and this video filming, and exposing fewer than 25 entities. Smaller models are more likely to make mistakes. So just be aware of that if you're doing that. So I'll go through the new integrations. Here, nothing that I use, but you've got all of these that are new integrations. There's a lot of noteworthy improvements to existing integrations. You can now use doorbells and motion sensors via the HomeKit bridge. You can also look at event entities for Unify, Protect, Doorbird, and August integrations using the HomeKit feature. And what else do we have here? The OpenAI now defaults to GPT-4o mini model, which is a cheaper model. So that helps costs if you're using that a lot. Let's see what else I see here. And that's about all that. These reached platinum level and now available from the UI are all these different integrations. One thing to note about Zigbee is there's a big Zigbee overhaul. It doesn't mean anything to you other than that it's going to be cleaner and easier to maintain. It shouldn't change anything on the back end. It's been split into separate code bases, making it easier to maintain and improve. It says you will not notice anything different right now, but this change will make the integration easier to maintain and improve in the future. So there's that. One big thing about Matter is now Matter will have the ability to show you when things need to be updated, and you can actually update it from Home Assistant. I haven't tried that yet, but we'll see if I get anything that needs to be updated. I have a sum total of one Matter device that I'm currently running on a regular basis. And it's a smart switch that's plugged into the wall. So if it needs an update, hopefully Home Assistant will tell me and I'll be able to update it over the air. If the manufacturer supports it, of course. For those of you running KNX now, you can manage it via the UI. I don't use KNX. I know it's a high-end wired home automation system, and you can integrate that through Home Assistant and now control it through the UI. So if you have that, congratulations. Other noteworthy changes, the new loading screen will show the Open Home Foundation logo since Home Assistant is part of the Open Home Foundation. There are now timer support using Assist for mobile devices, so you can set your timers via your mobile device or your tablet. You can ask Assist for the current time and date, and a whole bunch of other stuff you can read on their blog here. All right, that's just a quick overview of the 2024.8 version of Home Assistant. Let me know if you have any questions down below. Jump on Discord if you have any questions. And if you're not a subscriber, do the thing, and we'll see you on the next one.